From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Melinda Akilami.
Tonight, APC campaign train moves to the oil city of Warri in Delta State. Party's presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Tinubu promises to work towards transforming the state. We'll continue to fight for justice, Governor Wike vows, says no member of the G5 governors of the PDP will lose the 2023 elections in their states as they flag off the party's state campaign in Port Harcourt. Labour Party presidential candidate Mr. Peter Obi slams incompetence in government, says unqualified people are holding several positions. And discussions at the UN climate conference in Egypt run into extra day as countries struggle to agree on the next steps to tackle global warming.
And on business news tonight, all eyes on Nigeria's Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee as it holds the final meeting for 2022 after inflation hit 21.09% in October.
On sports news tonight, with less than 20 hours to the start of the FIFA World Cup, football fans from all over the world gather at the FIFA Fan Festival in Doha's Al Buda Park.
Political parties are ramping up their campaigns ahead of the general elections next year, staging rallies to woo voters in different parts of the country. We start in Delta State, where the All Progressives Congress mobilized its supporters for its rally in Warri, with the presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Tinubu promising to develop the state just like he did with Lagos while he was governor. The APC governorship candidate in the state, Senator Okowa, also flagged off his campaign at the event, pledging to do better than the PDP administration in the state if elected governor.
Warri Township Stadium is a venue of the campaign flag-off of the All Progressives Congress, APC in Delta State, and it's filled to capacity with party supporters who turn out for the event. Leading the team is the party's presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, accompanied by his wife, Senator Remi Tinubu, his vice presidential candidate, Alhaji Kashim Shettima. Other personalities at the event include the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, former chairman of the APC, Adams Oshomole, former Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, the Delta State APC governorship candidate, Ovie Omoagege, his running mate, Friday Osanebi, among others. National woman leader of the APC and president of the Senate gave a hint of what the party hopes to do in Delta State come 2023.
Nigerian women go all out. 40 million votes is the deal, and we will deliver Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Here we are at the threshold of history. The one and only committed son of your state, distinguished Senator Omoagege, is ready, is accomplished, totally committed to take the mantle of leadership to transform the entire state of Delta.
Next, the governorship candidate of the APC in Delta State and Deputy President of the Senate, Ovie Omoagege, outlines his plans for the state.
We want to change the narrative, and that is why I, Ovie Omoagege, the Deputy President of the Senate, today, I formally put myself forward as the candidate for governor of Delta State in 2023.
The governorship candidate is then presented with the party's flag, an exercise that confirms him as the flag bearer in the state. Presenting his programs to party supporters in Delta State, APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu criticizes the state government for its anti-people policies and offers them what he calls a renewed hope.
Ovie Omoagege is the next governor that will develop your thoughts, that will work with me as the president, that will bring development back, that will bring employment back, that will bring hope and well-developed progress to Nigeria.
The APC standard bearer believes the party has what it takes to win the elections in Delta State and at the center. He therefore appeals to the party supporters to work towards a successful outing next year.
Over to Rivers State, where Governor Nyesom Wike has vowed that no member of the G5 governors of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, will lose the 2023 elections in their states, no matter the gang-up against them. Governor Wike, who was speaking at the flag-off of the state-level campaign of the party in Rivers State, maintained that he and his 4 colleagues are just fighting for justice and will not back down. The 5 PDP governors, together with the former governor of Ekiti State, Mr. Ayodele Fayose, and Deputy National Chairman South of the party, Mr. Taufik Arapaja, appealed to the Rivers people to vote the PDP in the state.
It's an exciting time at the Adokie Amesiamaka Stadium, venue of the state-level campaign of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State. The 5 governors of the PDP, otherwise known as the G5, arrived with their host, Nyesom Wike. The arena is further charged as the famous 5 governors and other leaders like former Governor Ayodele Fayose of Ekiti State and Deputy National Chairman South of the party, Taufik Arapaja, all dressed in traditional outfit synonymous with the Niger Delta, walk round the over 40,000 capacity stadium to acknowledge cheers from supporters.
It is Sim Fubaram because he stands for justice. It is Sim Fubaram because as a young man. It is Sim Fubaram because he's educated. It is Sim Fubaram because we believe Rivers State should move to the next level. It is my wish to say that we have a divine incoming governor in the person of Similaye Fubara, ably assisted by a renowned professor, Ngozi Ado.
The national chairman of the PDP is conspicuously absent at the all-important party event for very obvious reasons, and the honor of performing the symbolic handing over of the party's flag falls on the Deputy National Chairman South, who presents the flags to the governorship and National Assembly candidates. One of senatorial candidates presented with the flag is the current Deputy Governor, Dr. Mrs. Ikbalipo Haribanigo.
God be the glory, PDP, PDP.
For the party's governorship candidate, consolidating on the already existing vision for a new River State is the way to go.
So it's not that you're supporting me, not that it's my day, but it's a day for continuity. A day that we have all agreed to say where our present governor will stop, Ubara will continue. PDP!
Speaking on behalf of the famous five, Governor Samuel Ortom of Benue State asked Rivers people to vote for the PDP at the state level and demand for equity at the national level.
I want us to work together as a team, and by the grace of God, in 2023, we are going to redeem Nigeria to the path of security, to the path of prosperity, to the path of social life, and everybody will be happy.
On his part, Governor Wike justifies why the national chairman of the party, Iyorchia Ayu, cannot lead the campaign in his state and strongly believes none of his colleagues in the G5 group will lose the elections in their respective states.
What the G5 is saying, equity, fairness, justice, the constitution of the party, section 73C of our party says, listen, we must share elective offices and political offices. And then you now say, you will take everything. I will not agree. I raise their hand today. If they are supporting me, support them.
Governor Wike then presents the governorship candidate of the PDP in Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, and his running mate, Professor Ngozi Odu, to the supporters, whom he asked to deliver only the governorship, state and National Assembly members in next year's election.
Are you having fun, Pataka? Come on! Pack! Baby,
Meanwhile, the PDP vice presidential candidate, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta State, says the nation's leadership has failed to unite the people for national development. He notes that progress can only be achieved through collective efforts and inclusive governance, and the PDP presidential ticket stands for that. He expressed this view while attending an interfaith gathering of northern Muslim and Christian youths in Bauchi State. Our correspondent, Hajara Aliu, has this report.
Unifying Nigeria lie at the heart of this conference of northern Muslim and Christian youths. The summit holds in Bauchi, and it's been convened by a member of the Plateau State House of Assembly, Honorable Abok Ayuba. The platform provides a blend of religious and political actors, the academic cycle, and traditional leaders. The PDP vice presidential candidate, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta, links up with the congregation along with the deputy governor of Bauchi State. The discussions are interwoven around coexistence, cooperation, inclusiveness, selflessness, sacrifice, and justice for the attainment of good governance.
When so many people are using so many sentiments to divide us, our eyes are open. Nigeria must stand together. Northern Nigeria must come together, and we must come together to rally on a visionary leader.
Bauchi Deputy Governor salutes the youths for taking up the task to unite all.
The collaboration between the two religions of Islam and Christianity is what we need to do in this country. And it is not just collaboration on paper, it is collaboration to the heart, to the level of implementation.
Nigerians must rebuild the nation together, and they must be careful in their choice of candidates to perform this leadership role, insists the PDP vice presidential candidate.
Of a truth, power belongs to the people. But unfortunately, we do not tend to see that. It now appears that power is beginning to belong to those who have money to buy us. That should not be. It appears that power is beginning to belong to those who believe that they can divide us for the sake of electioneering victory. That should not be. A united people and a united country could be a very great country.
The people here amplify with one voice the desired leader that should govern the country. Hajara Aliu, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, Labour Party presidential candidate Mr. Peter Obi slams incompetence in government. Plus, we have an update on the aftermath of the recent flooding in parts of the country, as well as the plans by the federal government to check its impact. That's in a moment. Join us again. you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. APC campaign train moves to the oil city of Warri in Delta. Party's presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Tinubu promises to work towards transforming the state. We'll continue to fight for justice, Governor Wike vows. Says no member of the G5 governors of the PDP will lose the 2023 elections in their state as they flag off the party's state campaign in Port Harcourt. Labour Party presidential candidate Mr. Peter Obi slams incompetence in government, says unqualified people are holding several government positions. And discussions at the UN Climate Conference in Egypt run into extra day as countries struggle to agree on the next steps to tackle global warming. For the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, the leadership problem is much more worrisome as he claims that unqualified persons are holding several government positions. According to him, the development is creating problems for Nigeria in different forms. In a series of tweets today, the LP presidential flag bearer said, "We are all aware of the problems and the issues confronting us. Bad leaders, insecurity, corruption, mismanagement of the economy, incompetent people holding positions at different levels of government, abject poverty in the midst of plenty, ethno-religious crisis. But all of these are mere symptoms. We see the manifestations, but the real problem is deep down. Every 4 years, we attempt to treat the symptoms by electing the person who has convinced us that he is the solution to our woes. Then he disappoints us." But on an optimistic note, Mr. Obi says Nigerians have a chance to change, adding that, "Let it not happen in 2023. We must seize the moment." To security matters now. In Ebonyi State, the police command says 2 security operatives attached to the Southeastern Security Outfit, Ebubiagu, have killed the police public relations officer of the command, Mr. Chris Anyanwu. He told Channels Television that the victims were murdered in Ebonyi local government area of the state. Mr. Anyanwu added that the command has launched an investigation to unravel the circumstances that led to the killing and arrest those behind the crime. Meanwhile, in Enugu State, no fewer than 2 policemen have been reportedly killed while on duty at a checkpoint in front of the Police Area Command, Agbani Police Division. The Enugu State Police Command says it has also neutralized the 2 gunmen who attacked and murdered a former commissioner in Enugu State, Mr. Gabriel Onuzulike, and his brother in Oji River local government area. According to the police report, a joint police-army team swiftly responded to a distress call on the incident and intercepted the hoodlums at Inyi community in the same local government area as they were escaping into Anambra State. An assurance of safety is coming for residents and motorists who ply the Lagos-Ibadan highway corridor as police authorities are moving to address kidnapping activities on that route. Speaking during an assessment tour of the area, the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of the Southwest, Mr. Johnson Kokumo, explained that the axis needs more visibility policing and patrol to weed out criminal elements.
The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, southwest Nigeria, is a major gateway to other parts of the country. Over the last 8 months, attention has been drawn to the incessant attacks, particularly kidnapping activities on the 127-kilometer stretch. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Force Criminal Investigations Department and coordinator of the Southwest Zone is here on a mission to assess and monitor the deployment of personnel on the black spots. From Shagamu interchange end, the convoy moves to Alapako, Ajogolo, Ogumaki, Ajebo and Onigari.
Bush has actually grown on the verge of the express road, and this, of course, has made feasibility so poor. And this, of course, has been serving more of a criminal hideout for the criminal elements making incursion from inside the bush onto the road to kidnap and return back into the bush. So it is very, very important, very key that we work to get the bush on the verge of the road removed, so to assist in feasibility, one, and two, to also prevent these criminal elements from making incursion from inside the bush onto the road to kidnap and return without challenge.
Drawing from his wealth of experience, Mr. Babatunde Kokumo proposes the construction of static points for personnel deployed to the axis.
We will increase police visibility to ensure that we have more points on the road. We are going to establish static points, more static points on the road, and of course, increase the patrol teams along the road. This, of course, is intended to reassure members of the public that we have the capacity to provide adequate security for lives and property on this stretch of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
With this latest action by the police, residents of communities along this corridor, as well as motorists who ply this route, said to be the busiest in the country, may now carry on with their daily businesses without fear of being attacked.
Staying with security, the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, is set to establish a multidimensional server center in Nigeria. This server hub, which is the first of its kind in Africa, is expected to provide cyber-related services while helping to curb crimes in member countries on the continent. Speaking on this, amongst other related matters, the Vice President of Interpol in Africa, AIG Garba Umar, explains that the center would have an automatic alarm system to send alerts on hackers.
The Nigerian government signed an agreement, MOU, for diplomatic immunities and privileges for Interpol staff that will be working. The essence of that is that Interpol staff that are working here can get immunity like any other immunity that is given to diplomats. And that is what Nigeria has signed. This will bring more equipment, tools and services for Nigerian government, and it will bring issue of training of our personnel, law enforcement agencies, not only the Nigerian police, all other law enforcement agencies. And it will also open room for in and out, bring in and out of equipment and material, human resources to Nigeria. This is one of such benefits. The one we're going to have here in Nigeria is coming up by the end of this year, by the grace of God, is going to be massive. The whole of the African continent will rely on the server center to deal with server-related issues. Meaning that if you wanted information, I'm not talking about your organization. If your organization is going to be hacked, or your system, or your gadget station, we can alert you prior to the attack. We can foresee what is going to happen and inform you, shut down your system and so on. We did it to NEMA, we did it to Central Bank, we did it to financial institutions, we did it to ANEC, we did it to the Nigerian police and other agencies that there were attempts to hack into their system.
From security to environmental issues, the flood waters are receding, but some communities are still inaccessible, with some of the places not yet fit for human habitation. In Delta State, some internally displaced persons are preparing to leave the camps, but say they need money and other palliatives from the government to help them resume their businesses. For others who have returned home, they are still counting their losses, calling on the government to help them start all over again.
With houses submerged, properties, farmlands and factories destroyed, the 2022 floods may have gone down in the nation's annals as the worst in a decade. In Delta State, 19 out of 25 local government areas were affected by the ravaging floods, with most communities sharing boundaries with the river Niger, including Oko, Bubolu and Ila, inundated. Residents had to resort to using canoes as the only means of transportation, making life difficult and necessitating the opening of internally displaced persons camps for victims. This is now the current state of the Ugolu-Ila Road and the Infant Jesus communities. Although the floods have receded and some people have returned to their homes, the marks of the water level bear visible reminders of the trauma the people experienced during the flood.
You know, when this water dries so much now, it'll be very difficult for them to farm the land. Now, it's not that the water is drying small, that they're going to put, like some of them that are farming cassava, especially that cassava. And the problem is that now to find the stick of cassava is very hard because water swept everything.
Back at the IDP camps, some persons are seen leaving to clean up their homes in preparation for their return, but not without some form of compensation from the government.
I'm going to wash my house at power line, the dry place at power line.
As I am going back, we are a farmer. So all those things we want to beg our government to help us, because if we are going now, we need cassava trim, we need okra seeds, and we need money.
The state government is bringing a message of hope to the victims as plans are already underway to settle them.
We're trying to carry out some level of fumigation against the flooded axis. We're looking at the integrity of houses, some buildings. The Ministry of Lands and Surveys conducting its own assessment, especially in urban areas. And then the NEMA, the State Environment Emergency Management Agency, and the committee, flood management, led by Chief Patrick Okowa, the Secretary of the State Government, is ensuring that a proper demobilization process is done.
For its part, the federal government is still going round states to present cash to the flood victims in order to ameliorate their suffering.
We have now intervened as an emergency intervention. And I don't know if you are aware that the federal government has also constituted a relief committee on the flooding, which governors are members of that committee, and one of the governors is chairing. So when they come up with their recommendations, Mr. President will intervene in a special way.
When flood waters recede, the damage left behind can be devastating, as the residents will only just begin to count their losses and begin to pick up their lives again.
Meanwhile, this year's flooding and the attendant devastation witnessed across the country has once again raised questions on the readiness of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to respond to such situations. This next report looks at how the agency is prepared to deliver on its mandate.
Following the massive flooding that has affected almost all the states of the Federation, Nigerians are wondering what steps the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, is doing to mitigate the assault on several affected areas across the country. NEMA's primary responsibility is to rescue affected persons and provide relief for disaster victims.
You're welcome, sir.
Recently, the agency received equipment to boost its capacity to respond to disasters. They include mobile emergency intensive care unit ambulances, response vehicles, water purifier trucks, motorized boats and inflatable boats, among others. And many Nigerians expect to see this equipment put to good use. However, NEMA insists that despite the equipment it has received, its operations are still spread thin. As a federal agency, NEMA works with state emergency response agencies to carry out these interventions despite the challenges.
My directors, everybody. So if you go to NEMA headquarters, our equipments are not there. We use, like for instance, our water treatment, we have water treatment equipment vehicles. We have 4 of them. The problem is we only have 4, but we have to keep rotating them. We are just taking, because when it floods, the first thing these people need is even drinking water.
NEMA also lists some of its interventions to ameliorate the sufferings of victims of this disaster.
NEMA has distributed relief items to 31 states so far. The President has graciously also approved 12,000 metric tons, which is 400 trailers of grains from the agri reserve, 12,000 metric tons, including food items and non-food items. NEMA has distributed around.
Therefore, like Oliver Twist, the agency is asking for more resources to avert fatalities during disasters. And federal lawmakers are pledging to play a part in supporting the operations of this agency.
NEMA should be funded very well because whatever that had been proposed has been appropriated to NEMA before the advent of the flooding. I think there will be need for NEMA to be really funded. And in so doing, as you said, budget has been presented. That does not foreclose the fact that the Senate can, the National Assembly can tinker with it and look at areas that are unnecessary, being budgeted for, and take them to where it's necessary.
Senator Sani Musa, who is also a member of the Senate Committee on Water Resources, captains one of the agencies of government who he says is strategic to mitigating the challenges of flooding.
I don't see why an agency like the river basins been allocated annual budgetary of 9 billion, 8 billion, and at the end of the day, just the example I gave earlier, it is actually river basins. I thought the main objectives, part of the objectives of river basins is to develop initiatives on how we can produce in this country, agricultural, how we can boost agriculture in this country, how we can boost irrigation in this country, how they can conserve oil, how they can preserve the water in the dams for the benefit of dry season and do irrigation.
As the country grapples with the disruption of lives of millions of Nigerians by this year's flood disaster, it's important that moving forward, NEMA rightly positions itself to effectively carry out its mandate.
Staying with the flood aftermath, this time outside the shores of the nation in Egypt, where the Minister of Water Resources, Mr. Suleiman Adamu, has been speaking on the recently inaugurated Committee on Flood Prevention and Disaster Management. The committee is tasked with producing master plans that will prevent devastating floods in the country. Speaking to our correspondent, Ayola Kazim, on the sidelines of the ongoing COP27 in Egypt, Mr. Suleiman Adamu says the plan will require continuity to protect future generations from natural disasters.
Well, starting with the presidential directive, I inaugurated the committee on the 3rd of November, just before I left for this event. And we have a time clock starting from today because we have 90 days. The working group is working, and when I get back, I'm going to get the latest brief about it. So now we have 75 days to go as of today. We have a clock counting downwards, and we hope to achieve that. So we're bringing all together. We've set up the steering committee. We've set up working groups, and they have sub-working groups for different aspects. What we're looking at, we're going to start from cause to the actual flood situation and post-flooding. So it's about a disaster management plan. It's not about preventing flooding. It's about preventing the disasters happening, too much, reducing the impact of flood, because there's no way you can stop flooding. There are nature-based solutions. There are also some high technical solutions. For instance, Rivers Niger and Benue, we can do what we call river training, of which dredging is a part of it, but it's not the one and only solution. So we'll be looking at those things, but these are money-guzzling interventions. When we talk about river training, we're talking of billions of dollars. We're talking of maybe 20, 30 years of interventions continuously. That means a government should not come and interrupt a program and say there's no funding. Once we start, we have to keep going. One of the things that we would like to leave at the end of the administration is to have started a master plan on the river training of rivers Niger and Benue, our main drainage network. The study alone might take a minimum of 3 years. We are trying to get funding to be able to start that master plan. And once that is achieved, we hope that successive administrations for the next 20, 30 years will continue to do the work that is needed, because it's not about us, it's about future generations as well.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Climate Conference has now passed its deadline without reaching an agreement. Delegates in the sea resort city in Egypt are still discussing most of the agenda set for the talks. Our correspondent Ayola Kazim reports that the conference set objectives which hope to solve how countries will reduce their emissions, adapt to climate change, and help others do same, amongst other goals.
So that we may begin.
In the history of UN climate COPs, it has only ended on schedule twice. So this year, after more than 300 hours, like the meetings before it, COP27 has entered overtime.
We are the people, mighty, mighty people, mighty, mighty people.
The protesters are still asking for action even in the dark. The released 20-some document is causing some discontent across the conference venue. The COP presidency wants implementation of all commitments, but the civil society groups want them to go a step further. They want climate justice.
So putting loss and damage on the agenda was an important recognition of the realities that many impacted communities face, but that recognition needs to be backed by action. We don't see that. So from the negotiations, we also want to call out, in particular, the US, Japan, and Switzerland for currently backing the third option, meaning let's talk some more and let's not have a fund, ignoring the consistent calls of developing countries and a growing number of developed countries as well, who are starting to indicate that they are prepared to be flexible and to compromise.
The perceived backsliding of the parties in introducing language from G20 that talks about rationalizing the phase-out of fossil fuel is seen as a move to derail the step towards reducing global temperature rise to within 1.5 degrees. Some have slagged the text of the cover decision, saying it is just not enough.
And so the challenge we have here is parties actually talking about 1.5. And the rhetoric on 1.5 looks good. But in substance, the one thing that can actually help us secure the 1.5 hard limit is the phase-out, the equitable phase-out of fossil fuels. And at the moment, in the text, we don't yet have it.
Even with the United Nations Secretary General's stop in Sharm el-Sheikh on Thursday, there are still huge gaps that need to be filled. The presidency is now meeting with the various consultation streams to save the failing COP.
Country parties and groups tend to link things and make sure that they're covered in all areas, especially because substantively many of them do overlap, especially the cover decision has elements that might be addressed elsewhere. So we need to ensure consistency in the texts. So that's where we are right now. Mr. Shukri indicated this much, that he will now start, and it is actually taking place right now, meeting groups to listen to them, each group at a time, to make sure we understand exactly where the concerns of various groups are. So it's not on a topic, it's across the board most of the time. And this is what is happening right now and will continue to go on until we bring this to what we hope to be the good conclusion we're looking forward to.
Delegates from 197 countries with very different economic levels, aspiration, capacities to move forward, and expectations when it comes to support in particular are once again trying to go home with some good news. But right now, they're all lost in finding the pathway to a successful end that will be beneficial to both people and planet. Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the president of the Conference of Parties to the UN Convention on Climate Change, Shamir Shukri, says COP27 decision intends to maintain the vision of keeping global temperatures rise to within 1.5 degrees Celsius. He told journalists today that although there is never a perfect solution, there's an effort to provide the basis to move forward, as he urges country representatives to show responsibilities during the process.
The responsibility of formulating what I believe are balanced and productive texts that can be the basis of a consensus. The issue now rests with the will of the parties. It is the parties who must rise to the occasion and take upon themselves the responsibility of finding the areas of convergence and moving forward. I will shortly be also consulting with the Secretary General and advising him of this development. And again, as we have reiterated on several occasions, the world is watching. Time is not on our side. We must all rise to the occasion. All must show the necessary flexibility. From what I ascertain, that there is equal dissatisfaction in all quarters, but in a vast majority of the parties, there was a receptivity to the basis upon which those texts have been formulated and the feeling that they do reflect a balanced approach that takes into account the various dimensions of interests and positions that have been demonstrated.
Back here in Nigeria, there appears to be more positive results from the fight against corruption, as the United States Department of Justice says it has transferred $20.6 million to the federal government as part of the loot traced to the former head of state, General Sani Abacha. In a statement, the U.S. DOJ explains that the fresh repatriation brings the total amount forfeited and returned by the U.S. in the Abacha case to approximately $332.4 million. This follows a judgment entered in the District of Columbia in 2014, ordering the forfeiture of about $500 million located in accounts around the world as the result of a civil forfeiture complaint for more than $625 million traceable to money laundering involving Mr. Abacha. According to the U.S. government, the repatriation is in accordance with an August 23rd agreement between both governments to return assets the United States recovered from the former leader. The DOJ explains further that under the agreement, the United States agreed to transfer 100% of the net forfeited assets to Nigeria to support 3 critical infrastructure projects as authorized by President Muhammadu Buhari and the National Assembly. The projects are the Second Niger Bridge, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and the Abuja-Kano Road, considered to be of direct impact to the people. In Cross River State, Governor Ben Ayade appears to be ramping up the fight against corruption as well, with the inauguration of a 7-member complaint and anti-corruption commission. Speaking at the State Executive Council chamber of the Governor's office in Calabar, the Governor expressed optimism that the commission will help block leakages in government. He challenged members of the commission to work with their conscience while performing their duties.
The Secretary of this commission. I charge you to desist from any form of intimidation or harassment of the public. I charge you to be law-abiding yourself. I charge you to have the fear of God in executing your job. And I hope that by the time you are 6 months in this office, we will start seeing that most of the leakages will start getting locked. And you know the point of conflict between our state law and provisions for the federal. We also know where our powers come before that of the national. So it is important that you understand the law and study the law that brought you into existence so that you can also communicate appropriately to the federal agency, who is now supposed to be your sister agency that you can learn from and partner with so that you can fast track your experience and bring value. We use this opportunity to also commend every member of this government and to know that there is now an agency that is watching over our activities. There's an agency that is licensed by the law of the Cross River State, House of Assembly as a law of the Cross River State to receive petitions on the activities of your office.
Now let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Laddie Williams has details.
Thanks, Melinda. On business news, Nigeria's financial markets are on edge as the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee prepares to hold its last rate decision meeting for this year on Monday and Tuesday next week. The meeting is coming almost a week after the country's inflation soared to a 17-year high of 21.09% in October, up from 20.08% recorded in September. At its last meeting in September, the MPC had raised the benchmark rates to 15.5%, with the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, warning of further tightening if inflationary pressures continue. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund has called for decisive and effective monetary policy tightening to prevent risk of de-anchoring of inflation expectations. And talking about the IMF, it has asked the CBN to step back as dollar rate mediator and allow the country's commercial banks to freely determine the FX buy-sell rate to boost foreign capital flows. In its 2022 Article 4 consultation concluding statement made after an official staff visit to Nigeria, the International Finance Institution called for a unified and market-clearing exchange rate, which it said remained critical to enhancing foreign investor confidence in the economy. The IMF added that, among other reforms, Nigerian authorities should consider adjusting tax rates to levels comparable to the average in the economic community of West African states as compliance improves. And the local stock market sentiments ended the third trading week of November on a positive note as it ended with a 1.22% gain despite pressure from profit-taking activities during the week. The gain is largely attributed to investors' interest in high-value equities, particularly from big banks such as GTCO, Zenith Bank, with support from MTN Nigeria, which helped to counter sell-offs from Guinness, Lafarge, and Dangote Sugar and other bellwether stocks. However, stocks' performance across the 5 key sectors of the NGX was mixed, with the banking and insurance and the consumer goods counter of the NGX in the green, while the industrial goods and the oil and gas counter were in the red. Axamansard led a pack of 30 gainers, up with more than 15%, while Scar Nigeria led 32 losers, down 26.29%, while the shares of Access Holdings, Transcorp, and Fidelity Bank were the most significant contributors to more than 694.37 million shares traded within the week. And at the unlisted securities market, activities ended the week negative as the NSE OTC exchange, the security index recorded a 0.45% decline. At the same time, the market capitalization fell by 2.36 billion naira to close the week at 935.07 billion naira due to sell pressure by investors. Similarly, the total value of securities traded during the week decreased by 38.84%, while total volume of securities traded on the exchange fell by 70.91% to 68.73 million units. Meanwhile, UBN Property leads 2 other gainers, up by 1.02%. It was also the most traded security on the NESD OTC market this week, while 1111 PLC is the only decliner with a more than 8% loss on its share price. Now let's bring you some of the things to expect from Nigeria's financial market for the next week. Traders and investors will focus attention to the Nigerian Treasury Bills primary auction holding on Wednesday, November the 23rd, where the CBN will roll over 213.43 billion naira worth of instruments. At the T-bill secondary market, traders anticipate low demand for T-bills and slight expansion in yields from current levels. For the bond market, traders expect the outcome of upcoming MPC meeting to influence sentiment. They also expect an uptick in bond yields in the medium term. And for the equities market, its performance is expected to remain mixed as investors will focus on the MPC meeting outcome for further clarity on the movement of yield in the fixed income market. And that's business news. Back to Melinda with the rest of News at 10.
Many thanks, Ladi. And for what to look forward to in the world of sports, here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Melinda. Nigerian Breweries PLC has strengthened its long-standing partnership with the Nigerian Football Federation with the announcement of Goldberg Premium Lager Beer and Life Continental Lager Beer as the official beer of the Super Eagles. Our portfolio manager, Mainstream Lagers, Hita Bassi, says the brewing giant has enjoyed a robust relationship with the NFF, and its passion to develop football in Nigeria is the reason they are bringing on the board Goldberg, their biggest brand in the West, and Life, the biggest brand in the Eastern region.
Nigerian Breweries PLC is taking its love for football a step further with this partnership event with the NFF tagged Beyond the Game. It's an exciting event that is bringing together ex-internationals, representatives of the Lagos State government, the media, and friends of the brand as it unfolds the two new official beers of the Super Eagles.
When you think about football and beyond the game, think about the stories. The development of football, the progress, the superstars that have come out of the game, the progress that they have made, that is life. And then when you think about the respect of the craft, the hard work that goes into creating these superstars, you saw Agawa, you saw Mutiu, what goes into that is that's the Goldberg story. And that's the reason why we have these two brands on this platform. And that's the reason why we talk about not just the game of 90 minutes, but everything that comes around it, everything that surrounds that game, everything that makes it such a great game that we love.
Both parties sealed the partnership with a ceremonial signing of the partnership deal.
Nothing brings and unites Nigerians together more than football. We know this. Whenever the Super Eagles are playing, it's not about the East, the West, or the North. It's about the love and the passion for the sport and for the Super Eagles and for all our other football teams, Super Falcons and the Golden Eaglets and the likes. And so really for us, it's really a thing about celebrating the love for the sport.
As Nigerian breweries, our core values are enjoyment. It's passion. It's about connecting. It's about delivering. And for us, it's about bringing consumers together, connecting with them, and giving them an experience that is worthwhile. We want to be a brand that walks the talk. So for us, it's about just establishing this relationship and these associations with our consumers.
It's not all about football partnership. For the first time, Nigerian Breweries PLC unveils female ambassadors for the brands. Nollywood stars Tony Abraham Ajayemi and Yaba Ojo were unveiled for Goldberg Premium Lager. The trio of Lizzie Gold Onoaje, Destiny Eteko and Mary Igwe were unveiled as brand ambassadors for Life Continental Lager Beer.
Well, soccer fans formed long queues on Saturday to get their first sips of beer at the FIFA Fan Festival, one of the only places where they can drink alcohol at the FIFA Men's World Cup. Well, in the last-minute U-turn, 2 days before the tournament's opening match, international soccer governing body FIFA said on Friday that alcoholic beer would not be sold at Qatar's World Cup stadiums. Budweiser, a major World Cup sponsor, had been set to exclusively sell alcoholic beer within the ticketed perimeter surrounding each of the 8 stadiums 3 hours before and 1 hour after each game during the month-long event. Now, fans can only consume beer at the FIFA Fan Festival in Doha, and alcoholic beverages remain available at the stadium hospitality areas. Our FIFA Technical Studies Group members Arsene Wenger and Jurgen Klinsmann have been sharing their thoughts ahead of the FIFA World Cup in Qatar, which begins tomorrow. Both legends of the game believe this tournament will be a World Cup of surprises. They are in agreement that an unexpected team can win the World Cup this year. And that's sports news. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Back to you, Melinda.
And thanks, Ayotunde. 2 people, both firefighters, have died after a plane crashed into a fire truck while taking off at the Jorge Chavez International Airport, Peru's busiest facility. No passengers or flight crew members were killed, but another firefighter is said to be in critical condition. Peru's health ministry says 20 passengers are being treated for injuries, 2 of them believed to be serious. It's not clear why the fire truck entered the runway while the plane bound for the southern city of Jilshalia had been cleared for takeoff. Russia has called on the international community to condemn the alleged execution of Russian prisoners of war by Ukrainian soldiers. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova made the call as reported by Russian media. According to her, Ukraine is violating international humanitarian law, especially the 1949 Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of prisoners of war and international human rights law. This comes after a video posted online purportedly showed the execution of 11 Russian soldiers taken prisoners in the eastern region of Luhansk. In another development, the head of Ukraine's biggest private energy firm, DTEK, says people should consider leaving the country to reduce the demand on the country's power network. Maxim Tinchenko was quoted as saying if they can find an alternative place to stay for another 3 to 4 months, it would be really helpful to the system. Russian attacks have damaged almost half of Ukraine's energy system, leaving millions without power as temperatures drop for the winter. And the main news again. The APC campaign train today moved to the oil city of Warri in Delta State. Party's presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who addressed supporters at the rally, promised to work towards transforming the state and the nation. Also today, Governor Nyesom Wike vowed to continue to fight for justice along with the 4 aggrieved governors of the PDP. He said no member of the G5 governors would lose the 2023 elections in their states. He made the comment as they flagged off the party state campaign in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. That's the news at 10 tonight. I'm Melinda Akinlami. On behalf of the team, good night.